Catholic means universal. That means we're open to the world, that we're open to all truth, that we're open to all kinds of peoples and cultures, and nations, and all kinds of knowledge. That's what university means. It's universitas. It's a universal conglomeration of people, subjects, ideals. So that's number one. It's got to be international. It's got to be fundamentally Catholic. Then it's got to be, I think, as we've talked so much, international, and it's got to be open to all kinds of knowledge. Catholic doesn't restrict you, it opens it up. It means universal. And I think it also has to be a welcoming place. Come here and be welcome and find people sincerely happy to talk to you, learn from you, and maybe even teach you.
Please welcome Notre Dame's Vice President and Associate Provost for Academic Strategy and Professor of Mechanical Engineering, David Goh, of the class of 2001.
My first and only encounter with Father Ted enforced in me how much of a bridge builder he was. It was the late 90s. I was an undergraduate student from right here in South Bend, majoring in mechanical engineering. I worked in our office for information technologies. And one day, our chief information officer came to us and said, I need a student worker to pick up a computer. So off I went to go pick up what I thought was an ordinary computer. And the CIO says to me, well, we're going to go visit Father Ted in his office because he has a computer he wants to donate to the OIT. I was shocked. There I was, probably in shorts and a t-shirt. I definitely had long hair. I looked like a hippie, and I'm about to encounter Father Ted for the first time. Well, we get up to his just impressive office, and he welcomes us in so graciously. And sure enough, he had this old Apple computer he wanted to donate. But this computer had a story. In the 80s, Father Ted was working on nuclear disarmament, and he had to communicate with the premier of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. Now, you don't just send Mikhail Gorbachev a postcard. You send him a letter, it gets stopped at our border, someone opens it and reads it, and then it gets stopped at their border, and someone opens it and reads it, and then it may eventually get to Gorbachev, and vice versa. It's extremely inefficient. Well, someone at Apple had heard about this and offered Father Ted a computer so he could try this new thing called electronic mail to communicate with Mikhail. When I reflect on that story, first, I'm just astounded about how easily Father Ted welcomed in a very uncouth student, but also how even then he could reflect on how he wanted Notre Dame to be a bridge builder. And he was using that platform to just tackle some of the most important problems in the world. How inspirational it would have been if I had switched majors, done something like peace studies, and followed in Father Ted's footsteps. Alas, I did not. My story took a slightly different path. I graduated in 2001, and I went to work for General Electric aircraft engines as a design engineer. I thought, I eventually want to become a professor because I'd like to teach. So maybe I'll work for a while, get my PhD, and then go teach somewhere. But while I was working, I learned something about myself. I really wanted to just be curious in a way that I couldn't get working at this company. I wanted to ask questions about the world and how to make it better. I wanted to stretch and exercise my sense of wonder. And so I did leave to go get my PhD from Purdue University in mechanical engineering, but I actually never taught in graduate school. I only did research. But by doing research, I could ask questions and pull on intellectual threads and just feed my thirst for discovery. In 2008, Notre Dame beckoned me home to South Bend as a professor, and I got the chance to both do research and teach, to be curious and to help others be curious. I started a research group, and we studied things like low-temperature plasmas, the kinds of plasmas you might find in a plasma screen or a fluorescent light bulb, and heating and cooling technologies, and 3D printing, and even devices to detect cancer. And I got to ask all sorts of interesting questions and seek all types of interesting answers. But while I could ask if or how or why, I quickly learned I could not always answer if or how or why. I needed help. So I started to build bridges. For example, I reached out to Mohan Sankaran, a professor at Case Western Reserve University. I cold called him and said, I have a question about writing proposals. And that has led to a 15-year collaboration where we study how plasmas can make chemicals more sustainably. I took the elevator down 2 floors from the 3rd floor of Fitzpatrick Hall and cold called Jason Hicks, a new professor in chemical engineering, and said, you work on catalysts. I'm curious, how do plasmas and catalysts work together? Anytime I had a question or an idea that I wanted to pursue, I asked someone, and I didn't know how to answer it. I asked someone who did know how to answer it, or at least was willing to work with me to find that answer. As I reflect on my career, there have been literally dozens and dozens of collaborators, of mentors and mentees and students that I've worked with. And I owe my entire career to these intellectual bridges that allowed me to just be curious. And I am proud to say that for the last decade, I've not had a single grant or project that I've been doing by myself. In 2022, our provost, John McGreevy, reached out to me for a discussion. He was in his first year as provost, and one of his main goals was to develop what would ultimately become our strategic framework. We were talking about how we needed to work better as a university, be more collaborative across units and across disciplines, to be more connected, to be more coordinated in order to go further, faster. And he asked me if I wanted to join him in the provost's office and lead that effort. And I admit, I was curious. But instead of research questions, I was now asking institutional questions. How do we connect ourselves? How do we build bridges between different disciplines and different units in order to make Notre Dame the force for good we all aspire for it to be? Our strategic framework outlines 2 important points. First, Notre Dame must be the leading global Catholic research university on par with but distinct from the world's best private universities. Great universities shape our world. Through their work and through their graduates, they shape our government policies, they shape our economies, they shape our technologies. But they also help us understand truth and justice and dignity. If we believe, as Father Ted did, that the world needs a Catholic voice to help shape it, it needs a great university. It needs Notre Dame. And becoming the Notre Dame the world needs will require the university to become better at thinking as an institution. The problems the world faces can't be answered in isolation by one person or one discipline or one perspective. No, we need to bring all of our talent to be creative and collaborative, to bear on these important problems in order to truly affect and impact the world. So how do we do that? Well, we have been developing these cross-university initiatives in areas like poverty and ethics and democracy and sustainability that gather together our faculty, our students, and leaders around important priority areas, important common causes. For example, on our ethics initiative, we have formed a nationwide network of faith leaders and technological leaders to create new frameworks for how we develop and deploy artificial intelligence, both ethically and responsibly. In our poverty initiative, we have launched projects with the states of Ohio and West Virginia to understand their programs that they've developed in order to uplift those most affected by the opioid epidemic. And we've done similar things in sustainability and health and democracy. That is in essence what I do. I get to build these bridges across the university so that we make the university have stronger foundation, stronger pillars, and stronger trusses so that we can be a greater bridge to the rest of the world. And what a great job for someone who, at the end of the day, is just curious about the world and how to make it better. And what a wonderful thing for me to work with the Notre Dame family on all these challenging problems to help us realize our aspiration to be a force for good. So my question for you is this: what are you curious about? And how are you going to use it to make the world better?